So, topic for our Shiur Klali today is to get you an introduction. Well, we can't go through it all, it's a rather large topic. But get you at least introduced and somewhat familiar with the issues around Ribbis, taking interest in Jewish law. The first section on the source sheet I noted is foundations. So, starting with the psukim we have here in Vayikra and Dvarim, the primary psukim involved here. So when your brother, a fellow Jew, and that's gonna come in a bit later, but this is involved between two Jews. When your brother has a lack of funding, is weakened, needs help, don't take from him neshech and ribit. We'll come back to talk about that. You will be in awe of your God, and your brother will be able to live with you. Because again, the context that's being raised here, this will come back to this at the end, is somebody who is impoverished. Don't give him your money with neshech. Again, neshech literally means to bite, or ribit. And with ribit, you won't give him food. I am Hashem your God, took you out of Egypt, and so that we have that at the end of many interpersonal mitzvot. When you have to deal with somebody who's in a weakened position, widow, orphan, etc., it'll say, "Oh, and I took you out of Egypt." And so I am Hashem your God. You have had a bad history. You've had a hard time. Now you're doing better. That's great, but I expect of you to be able to take care of the person who's in need. The second set of sources is from psukim is from Devarim. Again, lo tashich la'achicha neshech kesef neshech ochel neshech kol davar sheishach. Notice that here it doesn't say anything about somebody being poor. This is the first set of psukim in Vayikra has to do with a poor person who needs your help. Here, there's nothing about poverty whatsoever. You simply will not do this. You are allowed to do this, whatever this is, to a Gentile, but not to your brother, so that Hashem will bless you with all that you're involved in the land, etc. Now, the Mishnah in Bava Metzia, the primary parak in Shas that deals with Neshech and Ribit, is the fifth parak of Bava Metzia. It's called Ezu Neshech. Opens up Ezu Neshech. What is considered Neshech, this biting or this taking of interest? Hamal v'sela b'chamisha dinar. A sela is 4 dinar. So you give someone a sela and you ask for 5 dinar back. That would be the equivalent of saying, I lent you $100 and I'd like 125 back. Sa'atayim chitin b'shalosh. I lent you 2 measures of wheat, and I'd like back 3. Again, one of the things we're drawing from this is it's not just about money. It can be done with commodities. So I gave you 2 cans of Coke, and I'd like back 3 cans of soda when you give it back to me. So these things are mibneshu who knows sheikh. It's you're biting. You're taking off or away from somebody. Look at the Gemara then built on this in source 4. Amar Rav Nachman, Klali Rabita, Kol Agar Natar Le Asar. So Rav Nachman phrases it differently. The way the Mishnah said it was that it's when you give X and you get back X plus. The way that Rav Nachman explains it, the klal of Ribbit is getting paid to wait. Right? So Agar is schar, reward for Natar Le, for having waited. Meaning I could have my item now, but the fact that I gave you the item means I have to wait for it. I gave you the item, I gave you money, whatever it is I gave you, now I'm getting paid for the fact that I had to wait. That is asr. Now, taking that into a little bit more, practical, right? So when we say that actually, you know what? I'll do that in the details. The details section is after direct to Durban. Let's go direct to Durban first. So Ribbit Doraita, who b'derech hava b'derech katsu. Shulchan Aruch says that in order to be Ribbis Doraisa, now we care about Durbanans, we do Durbanans, but we also want to know what's Doraisa. Doraisa is in a manner of a loan, and b'davar katsu, something fixed. So I lend you $100, I know exactly what that is. I lend you 3 pounds of flour, so I know exactly what that is. If it's a loan and it's fixed, that's Doraisa. So what now would qualify as a Durabana? Go on to the next part, it's number 6. Kol davar asr lelo b'tosefet. It's asr to lend anything with a tosefet, if there's an addition coming back. Haga, klal Rabita, this is Rama speaking. The klal of Ribbit is kol agar natar asr. Bein shu derech mekach, bein shu derech hava, ela shu derech mekach, inu ela raka vak Ribbit v'humi Durabana. What the Rama is adding here is that the minute that we're not dealing with an actual loan, we're dealing with something in business. So now it's Asr D'Rabbanan. So what would that look like? If you say, I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to sell you, wait. It's not a good example. 1 second. Fluctuating commodities. right? So now we're not dealing with a loan at all. We're making a purchase of something. So it's derech mekach umemkar. You think it's purchased. There can't be any interest here. But I don't actually have the item. So what you're doing is you say, okay, Judah, I want to buy 10 pounds of gold from you. I want to buy 10 pounds of apples. It doesn't really matter. And we say that's fine. And we make the deal, but I don't actually have the item. So you're going to pay me now for what this is, and I'm going to provide the apples or the gold to you at some later date. Except, because I don't actually have it in hand, and commodities fluctuate, I may end up giving you less than what you paid for, or more than what you paid for, because when you bought it from me, it's not like you bought it and I'm just holding on to it. Rather, it's you bought something, I'm going to give it to you later, and I don't actually have it. And since its price can fluctuate, you could end up getting, right, for the fact that you gave me money, you're going to end up getting more. Just to make it very specific. If I don't know, Ariel, pick an item, a commodity, some sort.
Silver.
Silver, great. So if silver is going for $30 an ounce, and you say I want to buy 10 ounces from you, Judah, so I'm going to give you $300. Excellent. Now I don't actually have it. We agreed that I'm going to give it to you in 2 months. In the meantime, though, silver drops in value to $25 an ounce. And when I give you those 10 ounces of silver, I'm really giving you $250 of silver. No, wait, you should do it the other way. It should go up. It goes up to $35 an ounce. So when I pay you, and I give you in 2 months the item, I'm giving you $350 worth of silver, and you only gave me $300. Now, is this a loan? It was never a loan. It was a deal. But the deal has a loan-like aspect to it in that Ariel paid me now $300, and when I actually get him the thing, I'm giving him back $350. And so while it wasn't actually a loan, you did give me money for a period of time, and when you got the thing for the money, it wasn't worth that, it was worth more. And so that's going to be a vakur. That's going to be Durabanan Aser, because it's not Duraisa because it's not actually a loan. It's by way of business. But it does have the effect that you get back more than you gave me, and some time is involved. So now time went by, you got more, that's a vakur.
Does that also apply to like the stock market where there's no physical commodities?
So it starts to get complicated. In other words, whenever you're dealing with something where, in the stock market there isn't a physical commodity, but you could say, I bought a share of a company, but I bought it right now, in real time. The issue is going to come when you're buying something and delivery isn't until later. Right? So you're going to see as well, actually, let's go with it. So what happens now? There are several ways that this can work. It is okay, for example, and not a problem of Ribbis Durabanan, if you are buying something that is, and you're just really denominating it in currency. So if instead of saying I'm buying 10 ounces of silver, or I was buying 10 ounces of silver, if you say I want to buy $300 of silver, great. And so in 2 months, I will deliver to you $300 of silver. What you've really done then is just said, I'm giving you $300 and you're going to give me $300. Since it's denominated in currency, as opposed to in commodity, there's no fluctuation that takes place. I'll just deliver whatever the silver, whatever amount of silver is worth $300 in 2 months. That's one way. Another way is what I sort of referenced, which is what's called yeshlo. Yeshlo means if I actually have it on hand. If Ariel comes to me and says, I want to buy $300 of silver, and I actually have $300 of silver, I say, I'll bring it to you. And you say, no, actually, I'll go to Poland next week. It's not a great time. Could you just give it to me afterwards? That's fine. Because what happened now, yeshlo means, literally I have it, means you bought it and you bought it now. Delivery is not our problem. It'll sit in my room and it'll wait 2 weeks. I'm just kind of guarding it for you. I'm not just a shomer. But I'll deliver it later. So there's no question of fluctuation because those 10 ounces, whatever it's worth today, are sitting and they're marked Ariel Park. They say your name on it, it's done. So that's not a problem either. Third is if something has a fixed price. Right? So the reason I use commodities is that commodities have a tendency to fluctuate. Let's say we have something that has a totally fixed price in the world. This is what it costs. It's government fixed, or it's just not something that fluctuates a whole lot. I'm sure I think about examples, but I don't think that there's a set of flags on the back wall, right? I don't know that the price of flags is particularly fluctuating between now and next week. There are items you could buy in any store. It's going to cost $29.99. I mean, at least as long as the penny still exists. So it costs $29.99 for now because that's just what it costs. When was the last time the price changed? A couple of years ago. So it doesn't really matter then. If you say, look, I want to buy this from you, it costs $29.99, and we know that it will probably still cost $29.99 in a few months. then it's not a problem that I don't have it because it's not going to change. So that's something that has a fixed, yatsa ashar, has a fixed price. And the last is things that are very small quantities that we talk about being a loan, but they're not really a loan. That is, you go to your neighbor and you say, can I borrow an egg? Can I have a cup of flour? So in theory, your neighbor has lent you a cup of flour. And then what happens if over the course of a couple of weeks till you give them back the egg or the flour prices have changed? So the halakha says if it's davar mu'at, we're not really worried about it. Why? Because actually, it's not a loan. Your neighbor doesn't really actually care if you give them back that cup of flour. They don't care if you give them back 2/3 of a cup of flour because your measure was a little bit. They're basically gifting it to you. And you're basically gifting it back to them. We'll see the gifts get complicated, but only when it's a more sizable amount. If it's davar mu'at, it's like de minimis. You just don't care. It's not an issue. Mayor than us.
So in the case of silver that you're talking about, where somebody gives you $300 for some silver, it appreciates in value, and then you give them back. You would have then silver left over. Like even if you haven't exchanged it with them in particular, you still acquired more capital through this purchase as a because you waited.
Well, is it a case of yesh or not? In other words, when Ariel gave me silver was $30 an ounce, he gave me $300. Did I have the silver or did I not have the silver yet?
So you have. So say somebody has a whole bunch of silver.
Yeah.
So you buy $300 worth of silver from them.
Correct.
You now have a whole bunch of silver.
Great.
Then they buy back from you $300 worth of silver. Because silver's gone up in value, let's say, you now have silver left over after.
Right.
So
that's great. That's just called making a good investment. If everybody has the actual commodity, when he buys it from me, I have it, I give it to him, and there's no time lag between giving the money and getting the item. Then when I go to him, and I say, when am I back to you? So
also the $300 wouldn't be worth exactly $300, depending on the amount of time that's passed.
So you're raising a question of inflation and money. We're going to get to that later.
What if you use the commodity as a mashkon, and I give you $30 worth of silver, and then when I want to buy it back, it's $40.
So a mashkon isn't something you buy back, though. A mashkon is there to cover for the fact that in case I don't pay you back on a loan. So if you're saying what happens if I give you things in mashkon and then the mashkon has fluctuated, so it's going to be when the time comes of the payback, you get as much of the mashkon as you have a right to as a payback. But you don't just get to keep the item. It's a little. You're right. Your question is correct. It gets a little bit complicated because we have to evaluate it at the time of. Well, now you have to pay me back. You're not paying me back, so I'm going to keep your mashko, but I can't keep more than it's actually worth now.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're correct. Good. Okay, is this making sense so far? Okay. So then go on to number 7. So I just wanted to. So far, what I wanted you to get was number 1. The foundational idea. We have 2 different sources, some of which reference somebody being poor, some which just reference another Jew. Number 2, that Ribbis applies both to cash and to commodities. You can't pay back more. It is deraisa if it's in a loan context and it's fixed. It is derabanan if it has to do with things more like fluctuations in business deals where time went by between the payment and the actual acquisition of the item. Okay. But that doesn't apply if the item is actually in my hands, I just haven't handed it over yet. You've then acquired it. It just happens to be sitting in my hands. Okay, let's get to number 7. Dvar Torah, it says in Shulchan Aruch, Mutter lahavod oved kochav Ribbis. So based on the psukim that we saw in Devarim, in source number 2, it is that the Torah actually says it is totally mutter to lend on interest to a Gentile. But when we come back to the machshava section at the end, we'll see there's more to be said about this. Now number 8, Afilu im amar le b'shav ribin ani notno lecha b'matana aser lekablo mimenu. So it is not okay to say, oh, it's not Ribbis, it's a gift, right? I really like you, Noam Ribbis. So when I lent you when you lent me $100, I'm just giving you back the $100. Happens to be, I just want you to have a great Nissan break. Let me give you $20. Just go have a good time. Not okay. Right? The Shulchan Aruch is aware of that, the Gemara is aware of that. To simply say it's a gift doesn't make it not interest. We say, listen, bottom line, God gave you a loan, you paid him back, he got more than he gave you. This is fishy, right? You can't just write it off. I should point out, by the way, that within the context of Jews and Gentiles, so it's pretty easy to figure out who you can and can't lend to if you're talking about direct personal loan. Things get a little more complicated, though. What if your credit card company is owned by a Jew? What if another fine variation? What if you know a Jew who owns a gas station, and you know many gas stations will have one price for cash and one price for credit? So what happens when you pay more for credit? What you're saying is, if you pay me now for gas, I will charge you $3.50 per gallon. If you pay me later, meaning credit card, now I'm going to charge you $3.70 a gallon. So that's because I basically gave you time to pay, and if that gas station is owned by a Jew, that might be usher. What if you're dealing with a Jewish bank in Israel? This whole country has, Bank Leumi, Bank Hapoalim, Bank Mizrahi Tefachot, Bank Discount, all Jewish banks, and they're paying me money on my deposits, or I take out a loan, I take out a mortgage. I'm paying them for the money. How's that working? These are all Jewish institutions.
Isn't the way though that a credit card works is that the gas station owner would get paid right away, and he's just charging you more because the credit card company is charging him a fee. That's
Good.
not really for the waiting.
So that's part of it. Part of it is the fee that they charge them. But if you ever notice, sometimes like different organizations will say, "Oh, we charge this much more." Part of it is the fees charged by the credit card, and part of it can indeed be like, "Well, I just want to get my money now, and I'm not going to get it now." So. Here. There's another hand about that? Yeah, you do.
Just in regards to thing you mentioned about like the small items or small amounts.
Yeah.
If let's say it could be rare. If you give them let's like a baseball card, right? Can I just borrow something, a brand new baseball card, and it comes out the next week that becomes like very high in value, very high. If you didn't know like that when you gave it over to somebody you didn't really care about, did that stay with it? Or
Wait, but did you borrow the card and then you're giving back the card?
it was you bought it off the last day. It was like it's a bar muat, right? But when you give it over to bar muat, it can become something that's much bigger than that while the person has possession.
Oh, so this is more like, let's say, for some straight, there's all of a sudden something unimaginable, like an egg shortage. And you had borrowed one egg, but now that egg is worth a whole lot more when you're giving it back?
Yeah, something that's...
Yeah, so that could actually become a problem.
It wouldn't be the bar muat anymore, like, you can change the status?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The assumption of Devar Muad is it's so small, nobody cares. They're not really lending it to you. But if it actually becomes something that's like, hey, I need that thing back. There's actually a shortage, and we can't get any. It's gone up in value. It's gone up in demand. Now it's not a Devar Muad. You have to be really careful about what you're giving back. Give back really, really what you got. Right? Okay. So, God willing, there shouldn't be any flour shortages, but like these kinds of things can happen.
But like in the case of those eggs, like there's no. Like the quanta of an egg is one egg. Like you can't give somebody back less than one egg. So like if you borrowed one egg and they need one
Correct.
egg back,
That's why I was shifting over towards the flour example, because an egg is pretty easy. You borrow an egg, you give back an egg.
No, but that egg could be worth so much more now. And then, but you can't give them you could give them a monetary equivalent, but it's still not.
No, but that's exactly what we do. You can denominate in currency. If, for example, eggs get to be incredibly valuable, so you say, okay, I can't give you it. So it's called sa'ab sa, a measure for a measure. If I give you back an egg now, and when you gave me an egg, it was worth this much, but now that I'm giving it back to you, it's worth so much more. Now what I have to do is actually pay you instead.
But then what if the thing you need or you want in return, is that, so I guess the example would be like that baseball card, where there's only one of these baseball cards. You give it to somebody maybe for their baseball card showcase, and now they need to give it back to you. But the worth of the baseball card is...
Right, so the difference with the baseball, the reason I didn't go with the baseball card example is, baseball card, you're giving back the actual card itself.
Right.
So then what it is. You gave me this card, I gave you back this card.
Even though the
right?
value's
As opposed to what we're talking about, you paying somebody back, not with the item itself, with some substitution. And what we don't want is for the substitution to be worth more than now I've paid you. If I'm literally giving you the item, you lend me your car, and I give you back your car, so it doesn't matter if the car's gone up in value in the meantime. I literally just used your card. You didn't actually give me the card as substitute. You gave me the usage of the card, so I give it back to you. So baseball card's not an issue. Okay, let's go on to number 9. Rambam Matzia says, "Hamal v'chavero lo yadir b'chatzero chinam v'lo yiskor mimenu b'pacho b'nei shiur ribbis." So now, what happens if you lend somebody money? We'll do like a regular, straightforward loan, and you just want to do them a favor. We said that you can't just say it's a gift. You also can't do them other favors, such as, oh, you lent me money, you can live in my yard for free. It's not Ribbis. I'm not paying you anything. I'm just saying, come to my house. Or, you know what? You were so kind to me in giving me that loan. I'm going to let you use my services for less than their usual retail value. So I'm an accountant, and I usually charge $200 an hour to do your taxes. But because you were so kind and you were there for me with that loan, I'm only going to charge you $100 an hour. You can't do that. Why? Because you're just giving a monetary equivalent. You're giving a discount on something that has a usual fixed price because they made you a loan. Mar bin al aschar ve'in mar bin al mecher. So we'll explain this in a second. Ketzad. Hiskir lo et chatzero v'amar lo ime akshav et hanoten li hareu lecha be'eser slayim l'shana yim shel chodesh b'chodesh b'sela l'chodesh mutter. Machar lo et tzadeu v'amar lo ime akshav et hanoten li hareu shelcha be'elat zuz im legoren b'shnei masar mana aser. So what this is you're allowed to offer a discounted prepayment for rent. So you have an apartment to rent out, and we're trying to figure out what here qualifies as ribbis and what doesn't. Here's something that doesn't qualify. You say, I have an apartment to rent you. You can do it one of two ways. You can either give me $1,000 per month rent, in which case it'll be $12,000 for the year, or I'm willing to take $10,000 up front, prepayment. Now, why is that not ribbis? You say, listen, what you're doing is you're paying right now for the entire year's rent. I can give you a discount for prepayment. And it's not considered that if you do it monthly, it's now ribbis, because ribbis would be that you lend me something, I lend you, you're paying more. It's not the case here. Here, I want to rent your apartment, and I can either do it for the whole year. You're willing to accept less money, or you can do it monthly at a regular price. What you can't do is the other way around. It would be usher to say, I'm selling you this item, and it's $10,000 if you pay now and $12,000 if you pay later. Right? That doesn't work. So you see the difference between the two cases? The first one is there's an established rental rate of $1,000 per month, and I can give you a discount for paying sooner. What I can't do is charge you more for paying later. Charging more for paying later is now charging someone for the gift of time. That's agar natar. Giving someone a discount for paying now is my right as a person selling.
But couldn't you just have the price be higher? Aren't those two cases basically the same thing?
Explain? I think you're right, but there's a subtle shift.
If you say discount now for paying now is the same thing as saying, oh, I'm going to make it be more expensive later, therefore it's a discount, but it's really the price that I wanted.
Good. So Elliot's raising the question to say, what would happen if you said you could pay $10,000 in rent now or $12,000 in rent at the end of the year? Right?
Yeah.
So that now is a problem, because what you're saying is the price is 10 and I'll charge you 12 later. How is that different than saying the price is $1,000 per month and I'll charge you 10 if you'll pay it all now? So can anybody come up? What's the difference there?
Semantics.
What? So semantics would say it's not really a difference, right? I think there is a difference, but can anybody ferret it out? Sure.
I mean, it wouldn't be the difference between discount and upcharge.
No.
You're saying this is the price, less now instead of
More later.
more later.
Good. And now they're saying, but why is that a difference?
Because you're charging for the time itself. We established that the ISR is that you're making money for waiting, and so because it's at a later time, the issue is that you're getting money for the time spent in between.
Exactly. So let's take what I said. What happens? What's the difference here? It is normal to pay the rent monthly. That's a normal thing to do. You're saying I'm willing to give you a discount off of that if you pay it all up front, but you have no obligation to pay up front. Alternatively, the way that you're flipping on its head is not the same thing, because what you're saying is really the price is this much, and if you pay me at the end, I'm going to charge you 12. But it's not normal to pay the rent at the end. You
But
pay
what if
before.
you say the monthly if the monthly payment, let's say, is $1,400 a month, because I really want to get $1,000 a month, so I'm going to say it's either $12,000 up front or it's $1,400 a month.
But because you're totally within your rights, you're not making a loan to somebody when you say you can pay the rent monthly. Monthly rent is a normal thing. You pay just before you use it, so you pay on the first of the month for this month. So you say, okay, you have the right to charge whatever you want for that.
So the problem is just either paying now or paying at the end.
Exactly. Because if you pay at the end, now what you've done is you're getting more money for having waited. Paying the first of the month is not, you're not waiting at all. You are allowed to say, I'm going to charge you, if they were anti-interest, the opposite. I give you a discount by paying in advance. That you can do. See the difference?
Yeah.
Okay. No.
Is this all dependent on the market value of the thing that you're selling?
No, because you can charge whatever rent you want. It's a function of when is the normal time for payment. If you're being allowed to take more time to pay, if you pay more, that's a problem. If you're saying, listen, I'd be happy to give you a discount if you want to pay sooner, but no later than the normal time to pay.
Okay. I understand that, but like I still don't understand the difference between like before or later if you can choose any price you want.
Well, I mean, functionally, that my renter is going to want to take the cheapest way out. And I have a certain amount that I want to make. I will make that the prepayment price, and I'll just raise the rate astronomically for if you have to pay monthly. You could work that. But they still have a choice to say, I'd rather pay monthly, and monthly is a normal time to pay. They're still paying before they use the item. They're not being granted extra time. It's not a loan. So you could do that, and it would be a manipulation of the price that works for you. Still within reason.
There's no isser the other way around, where it would be an isser for you to pay for such a deal. It's just an isser on the loaner. Right?
What do you mean?
Meaning, like, if I accepted such a rental plan that was then charging me Ribbis.
No, so we're actually going to see later. The Ribbis is usher both for the one who's charging it and the one who's paying it, and even people who are guaranteeing it.
What if a non-Jew is charging me Ribbis?
No, so the minute you're dealing with a non-Jew, it's as long as there aren't two Jews involved, it's okay. Okay.
I've heard an idea that if you charge something like 5 times the market rate, then that's also.
That has to do with price gouging. That's not right. This is just about interest.
Yeah. Do you need I don't know really people that do this, but it sounds like you would kind of need a rabbi to look over all of your monetary agreements.
That's a possibility. But you're going to see we're going to get to other ways to make this work. Just take a live question on this side of the room. I don't know if there's anybody over here.
Just to be clear, you would just say, if you pay me, if you $1,000, you pay me now, $1,200, you pay me later. Obviously, we're saying that's usher. But if you said the opposite, at least not be much. If you just said, if you pay me 20 days, it'd be $1,200. But if you pay me now in advance, it would be discount $1,000.
No, so okay, this is a variation on Elliot's question. The distinction I'm trying to express is that when is the money for the sale due? In general, the money for a sale is due at the time of purchase, right? When you get now we're making the sale now, I have to pay now. Anything after that, or by the way, the rent is due on the first of the month because we're starting this month. So anything after that, if you're delaying payment and now you're giving more, is usher. If you say, no, I'm allowed to charge less if you pay me sooner, you want to pay me the rent, in advance of the entire agreement, I'm willing to take less for that. That's the opposite of interest. But it becomes ribbis when you're paying for the right to pay after when you should have to pay. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so let's go on to the next thing. Look at source number 10. That's variations here. Rabbi Gamliel Omer, yesh ribbit mukdemet, yesh ribbit mucheret. He says ribbit could actually also even be paid in advance or post facto. How so? Ketzad. Not an elev lo himenu, vayam shalech lo v'amar bishvil shetalveni zehu ribbis mukdemet. You want to get a loan from someone, but you're not sure they're going to make you that loan. So I say, Harrison, I noticed that I was walking by the ATM the other day. I noticed there was a large number in your account, and I'm hoping you'll be able to help me out with a loan. So could I get you a slice of pizza right now? You haven't made a loan. You haven't even agreed to a loan. Could I get you a slice of pizza? Could I do you a favor? Right? Here, let me carry your books for you. Anything I do now that's in order to garner the loan, right? You, by the way, might say, yeah, I'm not giving you the loan. But let's say if in order to get the loan is now prepayment of ribbis. There isn't even a loan yet, but I've now given someone something in order to curry favor or get them to want to give me the loan. What's ribbis mucheret? It says, lo v'menu, hechzer lo et ma'otav, v'yamishalech lo v'amar b'shvil ma'otecha she'yu b'telot etzli, so you're mucheret. Post facto ribbis is you borrow $100, you pay back $100. And then 2 months later, you say, by the way, I'd like to make you dinner. Why? It was so nice of you. That loan was so useful to me Basically, it really came at a great time in my life, and it was so helpful. So I'd like to now do you the following favor, service, gift. It doesn't matter that it's not at the time of payment. You could even have ribbis that's before the loan even exists, and you could have it well afterwards. So you could basically violate ribbis 20 years later. When someone shows up at your house and you say, oh my gosh, this is great. Do you remember, honey, do you remember when Nace lent us money? Oh, so great. And now I'm like lavishing all these gifts on you or whatever. That's your time to say, no, you can't. What it means practically is that if you make a loan to someone, what you want to stick to is a simple thank you. Just like keep it really, really, really simple. Hey, Tom.
Is there a statute of limitations like regarding ribbis with Shemitah? Or Shemitah, I said the wrong word.
No. So you mean like every 7 years when loans get canceled, Shemitah will have a cancellation of loans.
Yeah.
So what's your question?
So with the intention of I'm doing this nice thing for a person as that being ribbis, would there be a statute of limitations that expired?
No, it could be for a very long time. If you're doing it for that reason, what we're going to see in a second is that whatever's normal and customary is going to be okay. So go to source 11 for a second. It is usher, says the Shulchan Aruch, to teach somebody or their kid Torah during the time that you have a loan for them, if you wouldn't have otherwise done so. We're going to see this here. Meaning, if we're learning here, you're in Shiur, I'm going to teach you anyway. That's fine. But let's say you have somebody who I wouldn't have taught other than the fact that they now made me a loan. So somebody down the street in Neve Daniel makes me a loan, and then I agree to tutor their kid for bar mitzvah. This is a problem now. Why? Because what if I'm doing this, in order to basically give them back something for the loan? This is a problem. But look at the next one. Even if it's somebody you never would talk to, I'm not friends with this person, and so I don't generally go to them and say, "Hey, how you doing?" But now I'm doing that. Why? Because they did me a favor, they made me a loan, and so now I'm like trying to be extra nice to them. This is a problem also. What it comes down to is you have to be normal and customary. So, if it's not somebody I really talked to beforehand, I can't really talk to them now. If it is somebody I talked to beforehand, then I can. I've always taught you, so therefore I can continue teaching you. If I haven't taught you till now, we're concerned that this is now a form of payment. If it's somebody with whom you have, let's say I would have already, I invite you over for Shabbos every few weeks, then it's perfectly fine to have your lender come over for Shabbos now. But if it's somebody that you never invited before, so it's a problem. So one of the things the post can raise is, what if over the course of the loan you just became friends? Right? Yes, I never invited you to Shabbos before because I didn't know you. Over the course of this process, I was like, hey, you're a really good guy. You're the kind of person I'd like to have over for Shabbos. So they say is basically, wait till the loan is over, check your feelings, see that you really genuinely feel like you really want this person over, not as a way of saying thank you, not as a way of payback. I genuinely want to spend Shabbos with you. Okay, now we're talking. Yeah.
When it comes to like Jewish organizations that often get loans for whatever, and they'll host a dinner or something like that for people who donate, for people who give loans to the organization. Obviously, a donation is a different situation. That would be awesome. Or how do they figure that out?
Wait, but these are people who donated?
Oh, no. Obviously, a donation would be a different situation. Right. But if you have a Jewish organization where there's some sponsor that is loaning some amount of money, that would be awesome. You couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if I don't know, a school needs a loan to get by,
right,
and now they're going to honor that person at their dinner.
Yeah.
It's problematic. Okay, so let's get into a little bit how this. You have to get a little further into the weeds of how this works in practice, because in the modern world, this is all the setup. The setup is, you give something, you get back exactly what that was. If it's currency, that's easy to denominate. If it's a commodity, you have to give back that value of. We've talked about what time the kinyan was made. It's super important that you not be giving back anything more if there's a time lag between when you were supposed to pay and when you actually pay, because now you're getting paid for waiting. And we talked about how it doesn't have to be cash. It could be even just niceties or favors or teaching, all those things. But now talk about the real world. Because in the real world, number one, Jews need loans to do business. And for long periods of time, particularly in Europe, Jews were the only money lenders, right? It was one of the only fields the church let us be in. And so now you're a Jew in 13th century France. You need a loan because you're trying to get by or start a business, and the only person you can get a loan from is a Jew. What do? Two, Jews weren't allowed to do much more than this. Like there were a few businesses they let us be in. So this is one of the businesses we can be in. You're a Jew, you say, okay, well, I need to make a living, but as the lender, I need this as my business. I can't just be giving out free loans. Time value of money, right? So basically, I'm a lender and I want to loan you money. So if you're asking me for $10, I'll give you $10, that's fine. What if you're asking me for $200,000? And the truth is, I want to help you, but given the time value of money, given a modern economy with inflation, if I give you $200,000 for 10 years, if I had that money, I could really be using it. I could at least be making up for inflation. If I give you $200,000 and you're going to give me $200,000 in 10 years, I'm not sure that I'm really getting back what I gave you. Now, Chazal happened to have operated on this is the parak before. This is the fifth parak of Bava Metzia. Fourth parak of Bava Metzia is Parak Zahav. One of the things that emerges from a reading of Parak Zahav is that you realize that Chazal assumed that everything is basically denominated in silver and that the silver supply in the world is more or less stable. That the same amount of silver gets mined, more or less, as gets worn off of the coins. And so that's just their basic assumption. So they assume no inflation. That's not true in a fiat currency world. We definitely have inflation. And so I can tell you right now, even if inflation doesn't change at all, it doesn't go up, whatever, it just stays exactly where it is, I'm going to be losing a substantial portion if I make you a 10-year loan on any amount. So if it's $10, I don't care. But if it's a large amount, then I really need to be able to have some ribbis or constant ribbis to be able to get back my money. So what do? So what happens is there are a series of things in halacha where we have a concept, a beautiful ideal, but then the ideal, when you're trying to bring the ideal into reality, we run into trouble. I brought it here as sources. We're not going to go through it in depth, but just to give you a sense. If you're looking at something like a pruz bowl, right? We want to have people. We want to have loans lapse. Go back to Eitan's question from before. You want to have loans lapse at the end of Shemitah because that's a really good thing. It's a good thing for poor people, etc. But what if you say, listen, if that's the case, I'm not making a loan, and now poor people aren't going to get any loans as soon as we get close to Shemitah because nobody thinks they're going to get paid back, and now society is going to grind to a halt. We have a problem. So what do we do instead? We came up with a legal fiction. It's called a pruz bowl. It says that interpersonal loans lapse, institutional loans do not. Therefore, what we'll do is we'll make every loan into an institutional loan. And that way it won't lapse. With a series of other things in halacha that we will use as a legal fiction. And basically, a legal fiction is fine as long as it is legal. Now, when I say fine, I mean it's legally fine. You have to have a mechanism that actually works. We're also, though, always trying to uphold the philosophy of halacha. And that's a tension. If we can fulfill the philosophy of halacha and the practice of halacha, we will do so. I mean, we have one coming up, right? I think, is everyone here learning Pesachim? Yeah? Okay, I know there was one shiur that was still back in Kiddushin. So, what? Still Kiddushin. Okay, so the rest of the world has moved on to Pesachim, Ethan. The thing to know about is this. So you're supposed to get rid of all your chametz. Not own any, destroy it, that. We live in a world where people go to Costco and buy huge boxes of things. It's going to be a waste of food and a waste of money, etc., etc., etc. So what do? We work around it with a legalism. The legalism is we'll sell our chametz. Okay, is it legal? Yes. Does it work? Yes. Is it ideal? No. So to the extent that you can destroy some of it, that you can fulfill the idea of getting rid of your chametz, that's great. To the extent that that's not going to happen, it's okay, we have a legalism to work around it. So I know many people who only sell closed chametz. Anything that's open, they're going to get rid of. Why? Because that's a line that you can draw. Or they don't sell chametz gumbo, like bona fide chametz. They only sell chametz derivatives. So all these things are legalisms where you're trying to uphold the ideal, but you're also trying to live practically. So this is another example. We have something called a heter iska. So what is a heter iska? So let's go to source 15. Malva adam lechavero maneh al tanai she'yit'asek bo l'revach ha'malva ad sheyehei shnei maneh. So I can lend Amitai money and say, Amitai, I'm going to lend you 1,000 because you're opening up a business. Right? It might be a stroopwafelen business. It might be anything else that I really can't pronounce in Dutch. But when you said it, you sounded so convincing. I was like, this is a good investment. I just want to be able to say I'm invested in a Dutch company. In any event, so I can lend you 1,000, says the Shulchan Aruch, and it's based off of the Gemara in the 5th parak, with the idea that you're going to take that 1,000 and you're going to open a business and you're going to try to turn that 1,000 into 2,000. You're going to try to turn 100,000, 200,000. You're going to try to double your money is the offer Amitai makes me. I have this great idea. It's going to go amazingly. Invest in my company. So now, עד אותו זמן, כשיהיו שני מנים, יחזרו שני מנים למלווה, ומשם ואילך יהיה כל רווח ללווה. So what's going to happen? We say like this. I'm going to give Amitai the money. This is an investment. Investments are fine. Investments are totally it's no problem. I'm going to give him the investment, and he's going to give me back, hopefully, double if the business does well. No problem with this. This is an investment, not a loan. And what's the setup? The setup is I'm going to give him the money, he's going to hang on to it, and when he makes the double, he's going to give me back my original principal, and from then on, all the he's going to give me back the double, and then he's going to keep all future profit. So again, I give him 1,000. He's going to use that 1,000 to run his business until it makes 2,000. He's going to give me back, and then he continues to own the business, and you're going to keep all future profits. And that's our setup. So I got a return on investment. That's great. Now, the one thing I have to do though is when I invest in Amitai's business, I get back to 2,000. I need to pay you something for your efforts, right? So the time and effort that you put in. So we'll figure out how many hours you put into this business. I'll give him something. And we can work out how much that payment's going to be for his efforts that he's putting into the business. Whatever it is, that's fine. Sagi, that's good. Haga. V'hu adin ibcha. Shemal velo tchila letzorech halove ve'achar kach yasok bo letzorech hamalve v'notin lo. Now, says the Ramah, you can also switch around the circumstance. The way that I just described the case was one in which I give the money to Amitai, he works with it, he makes the amount of profit that we agreed on, and then he gives it back to me. What if we say, I'm going to give him the money, and the first profits, not the later profits that are going to go to you, first profits are going to go to you. And eventually I will get some later profits. Now, how does this open up the door, right? Is that if you now conceive of what otherwise would have been called a loan, as an investment, we're saying it's mutter. Now, what's the difference between a loan and investment that's going to make it mutter? Right? In both cases, I give you money. And in both cases, at a certain time, you're going to give me money back. Why should an investment be okay? It's a key difference.
It's not the waiting that gets you the money.
I mean, you are waiting and getting back more money. Well, what's the key difference between an investment and a loan?
If the business fails,
What? Investments have risk. See, in the loan case, if I give somebody $1,000 and then say, okay, you'll give me back $2,000 in a year, so that's just straight up loan with Ribbis. And if they don't give me back $2,000 a year, I can pursue them in court. If I invest into Amitai's Strudwaffeln business, and he goes belly up because they're actually just not as popular as I thought they would be. And he put in money and time, he bought product, and it's going bad, and it's just like the whole thing is a waste. We now own all these like plastic bags, I own a Waffeln machine, and I don't know what to do with it anymore, it's useless. So that $1,000 is now, at this point, worth about $200. And Amitai says, I'm really sorry, I thought this was going to be a great business, here's your $200 back. I can't pursue him for the other 800. Investments have risk. And so the element of risk is what changes everything to make it an investment and not a loan. Now, why is that useful? So the sources that follow this, specifically the Shach, and you'll see in the Igros Moshe, is that the idea came up, and it's really based on a suggestion of Truman Adeshan. Truman Adeshan says, what would happen if instead of giving someone a loan, we made it a loan, and I put it in quotation marks, and we made an investment. So what makes it an investment now? This investment is, I'm going to give you money, and we're going to agree that you're going to give me back more money because I invested. Now, what about the factor of risk? So we'll say the following. If the money actually got lost, because this was an investment, it wasn't a loan to Amitai, it was an investment in this true Wafel business, but Amitai, guess what? I don't really trust you. I don't trust you. I'm sorry. So why? You're a lovely guy, but I just don't know that I can trust you. Here's the circumstance under which I will tell you. When you come back and say, I'm sorry, the business didn't work out, and I lost $800, I don't believe you. I will only believe you if you are willing to stand with 3 Rosh Yeshiva, your local Rav, and the Gabbai, hold a Sefer Torah, and swear to me that you lost exactly what you say you lost. You lost $800. Now that means if you're Amitai, you're a little scared at this point. Because it's an imposing thing. Like, even if it's true that you lost $800, what if it was $7.99? What if it was $800.02? I don't want to make an absolute statement holding a Sefer Torah in front of Rosh Yeshiva, in front of witnesses and the rabbi. I'm not so comfortable. So I say, I'll give you an out clause. The clause is as follows. I'm going to invest $1,000 into your business, and you're going to give me back $2,000 in a year. And if you claim that you lost, these are the very far out circumstances under which I will believe you. And if not, I'm willing to accept $1,000 as a payout. Because, by the way, maybe you made a lot more money, and I'm not getting that either. This is the buyout clause for not having to swear or some sort of ridiculous circumstance. And now we're going to call it investment, not a loan. So what we're working with here is the technicality. We said that the difference between investment and a loan is that an investment has risk and a loan does not. What if we create effectively an investment that has incredibly little actual risk? Said differently, because from the other side, I'm going to take out this idea, just like look at it from the other side. It's really a loan that has a very tiny risk. I'm basically making Amitai a loan, and I'm saying, this is the loan, and you're going to pay me back this amount. You pay back 12% compounded annually, whatever, or 2%, it doesn't matter. But you're going to pay me back. And the way that we're able to call this an investment and not a loan is that there is a tiny little risk. What if Amitai has no compunction about swearing, holding a Sefer Torah in front of a bunch of people? If he just doesn't care, then actually I could really lose my money. Because what the contract says is that this is an investment, and that the only reason he's paying me more is because I don't really trust him. But if he's willing to do the clause, then that's what happens. Is this making sense? Right? Now, this is like an unbelievable example of a very fictional, legal fiction. It is legal, and it is pure fiction. Do we still ideally want people to make loans without interest? 100%. In order to make the world work, though, we say is, okay, if you don't have that option, if you can't, you live in Israel, you're not going to get a mortgage from an American bank for your Israeli home. That's not a thing. So I need to go to Israeli bank, and the Israeli bank is only going to do this if we pay for this. So how do we do that? So you sign, banks will have what's called a heter iska klali, a generalized heter iska. A person can have a heter iska klali, and now react to, was it you, Mayor, who said something about like all your transactions you're going to need to talk to a rabbi? That was you, Mayor, right? So I will tell you, I actually have a signed heter iska klali that I signed some years ago. I asked, I think, Rav Gavriel and someone else to be adim on it. And basically, it printed out. And what it says is that before I even get to specific transactions, my bank has one, and this investment has one, or whatnot. But just as a person, I'm already carrying a general document that says anything I do that looks like I am lending money on interest or borrowing money on interest is actually all covered by the following, which is it's all really an investment, and only under ridiculously difficult circumstances would I be able to actually realize the risk on that investment. And so short of that, it would be paid out as whatever is listed in the document. Yes?
2 questions, or maybe 3.
I may not do all 3 of them because we're short on time and I will get much over it.
Yeah, one is that, like, in these cases about cooking somebody a meal as a thank you for a loan they gave you. I can see like the principle remains is like you don't want to give them back more than what they gave you, but especially if they're unaware of this law and why you're not, giving them a proper thank you, then this just seems like pretty rude. Especially if they give you like a very significant loan in the time that you really needed it, and you just say, "Oh, thanks," and like never acknowledge it again.
Yeah, so there are lots of things that it pays in this world to explain to someone. You're on campus, and some girl in your class, really excited that you worked together on a project, did well. She wants to give you a big hug, and you try to explain to her, like, I don't mean to be rude. I don't actually hug women who aren't my wife, my mom, my sister, etc. And there are things where you have to explain to somebody, I'm sorry to return your call, it's the Jewish Sabbath and I don't use my phone on that day. Here's one we say to somebody, listen, just so you know, I at one point took a little bit of a loan from my brother-in-law, and I said to him, he's a firm guy, but I don't know how much you knew about this. I said, like, a little bit of Hilchos Ribbis, I just want you to know, I'm saying thank you, and I'm not saying anything more. And he smiled and said, I get it. He does it. Just explain something. I would love to thank you profusely or just do some favor. You should know that in Jewish law it's forbidden for me to do anything of the sort because it constitutes interest. I just want you to know I really thank you for your help. And here's the money back. Done. Explain what you're doing and move on. Now, so, okay. Oh, yeah. It's two more, right?
Yeah, the second piece kind of ties into the third question, which is that when did this system of this legal fiction of the investments arise and under what circumstances? And then I guess I'm acting on the assumption that it's kind of devised several years after the Second Temple, and I'm wondering how the monetary system of like First and Second Temple Judaism functioned.
Good. I don't know. That's a very, very large question. But the first part of it I can answer quickly is I don't know. I do know that, don't forget, for a lot of history, as far as Chazal were concerned, there wasn't inflation. So this is a much more modern problem in that we use fiat currencies and inflation is built into the system. If you're in a non-inflationary society, it's much easier to actually stick to this as intended. The minute you're dealing with currency that degrades over time, it becomes a huge problem that you now have to figure out. Otherwise, I just said it. So okay, good. So let's get on to if you have at this point a reasonable understanding. I just want to give you that as a piece of how this works in the real world. Reasonable understanding that the way that we structure things that need interest. If you could do it without interest, great. But if you need interest in order for a transaction to happen, and part of that's because of the world we live in, what we do is we use either a heter iska klali, a generalized heter iska for a heter. By the way, heter, right, permission. Iska is an investment, business deal. So we turn our loans ideally specifically into a heter iska, so we turn into investment with a heter iska, or generally speaking with a generalized one if you can't do it specifically. That's how it works in the modern world. So let's just do a little bit about machshava on this. I'm skipping over a couple of sections, but do a little bit of machshava, which is take a look at the Sefer Chinuch. It's source 20. It's onto the third part here. The Ramban and the Ketav Sofer offer three different reasons for why Ribbis should be asur. The Chinuch says, Mishor Shei HaMitzvah, the roots of this mitzvah, Ki akel tov chafetz b'yishuv amo asher bachar. God wants society to run well. The Alkain, Siva Lahasir Mikshol Midarkam, the Vayivla Achad Chel Chavero, Niblishi Yargish Ba'atzmo, Ashi Matze Beto Bekan Mikolto. So what's he worried about? According to the Chinuch, the concern about taking Ribbis is we don't want to bankrupt each other. You want to do that to another person. And therefore what's going to happen is you're going to make someone a loan and then people lose track. Right, this happens all the time. People will take on credit card debt, and it just grows and grows and grows. They don't even realize it's growing. And then one day they basically realize they're bankrupt. Kikain darko shoribid. It happens with ribbit. Yadua devar nezen nikra neshach. That's why we call it neshach. He says it's a bite, because basically you take the loan and you're not thinking about it until you realize payment is due. And when you look at how much you owe, oh my gosh, it cleaned me out. Literally, the way he describes it is my house is just emptied. That's why it's called taking a bite. That not only that, it is usher. This is usher for the lender, for the borrower, for the witnesses to the transaction, to the scribe who makes the transaction. If we make it usher to everyone, we let everyone understand that this is going to hurt society. We don't want to bankrupt each other, and therefore we make it usher for anyone to participate. That's the chinuch. Take a look at the Ramban. It's slightly different, but it's an important slight difference. Which is, he said, he said that there's also the prohibition to the borrower here. That there isn't for all other laws of monetary law. Look, if you want to rake your own stuff, you could do that. Why is it here? You say, I want to pay Ribbis. Why can't I do it? The Ramban says that the borrower is also being prohibited from participating here because it's too easy and common. And now, Ubeir Bakan, Shia Ribbit Hanochri Mutter, Velois Kirkame Begezel Begneva Kmusha Amru, Gezel Goy Aser, Ribbis who Nasser the Dutch name of Retornum Lo Nesar, and it's at Achmava Chesed. So the Ramban is saying something different than the Chinuch. According to the Chinuch, Ribbis is aser because you're doing something bad to other people. Ramban says if that's the case, why is it mutter to charge Ribbis to Gentiles? You're not allowed to steal from Gentiles, he says. That's wrong. You can't damage a Gentile's property at least to pay for it. Why are you allowed to charge Ribbis? Says the Ramban, it must be the Ribbis is not inherently morally wrong. The Chinuch has it as a moral wrong to everyone. You shouldn't do it. Why can you do it to a Gentile? I don't know. For the Ramban says no, Ribbis is actually normal. It's a totally normal thing. I gave you money. I could have been using that money right now. I deserve to get back something for the fact that I gave it up. I at least lost the utility of it, if not some of the value. So why are you not allowed to do this? He says, the reasoning is because it's to another Jew. We are a family. We have a set of mitzvot that are really, instead of thinking of it as, we're just allowed to be not nice to Gentiles, it's more the other way. There's a default, but we expect more of you with them. Only applies to Jews. What? You shouldn't love Gentiles also? Of course you should. But it's not reasonable to ask somebody to love someone else like themselves unless we're talking about family. We are family. The mitzvah of, Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara is technically, it's a bad habit, don't do it, but it's technically mutter about a non-Jew. Is that because we don't care, we can say they're not Jews? No, it's the other way around. Lashon Hara is a normal thing in society. People do it. The Gemara Bava Batya says nobody gets through their lifetime without doing at least a little bit of Lashon Hara. It's just a normal thing. Everybody does it. But you shouldn't gossip about your family. So here we're saying as follows. Ribbis is normal, says the Ramban. It's a normal thing. People charge interest for giving out a loan, period. Not usurious interest, just normal interest. But to your sister, to your brother, you should not be charging that. And we are all sisters and brothers. So the difference here between the Chinuch and the Ramban is that for the Chinuch, this is a moral wrong in and of itself. The Ramban, he says, no, this is not morally objectionable at all. It's only objectionable because we expect better behavior towards our families. And you get to the third one, which is where we're going to close on this, 22, the Ktav Sofer. Ktav Sofer explains as follows. Actually, I'm just going to say it out because it's past 12. Ktav Sofer says the real poison of Ribbis is not actually for the borrower. Right, the first two approaches. The Chinuch says you're going to bankrupt the borrower. The Ramban says you're not treating the borrower properly as a family member that you should. The Ktav Sofer says something very different. He says the real poison of Ribbis is for the lender. Why? He says it is not healthy for a person to start thinking that I can just make money in this world without any effort, without any work. You need to work for a living. Even if you're taking risk, you're making investments. That's still a form of work. You have to analyze the investment. You should go out and get a job. But the idea, this is the last part, the idea of I am now just sitting back, I do nothing but get paid. I give you a loan, I give him a loan, and in time there's more money coming in. I never did a shred of work. He says that's really spiritually poisonous. You shouldn't be a person in the world who doesn't work for a living. Okay, we'll call it that.